Welcome to the Intimacy Unlocked podcast. I'm Serena Haines, your everything to do with sex coach, and I'm here to answer all of your juiciest sex questions. Hello, lovers, and welcome back to the Intimacy Unlocked podcast. I'm Serena Haines, your everything to do with sex coach, and we're answering all of your juicy, burning sex questions. Well, hopefully they're not too burny. And your confessions. Let's keep the burning out of it, okay? We talked about that last time. We got a lot of questions come in again, and we also got our voicemails sent in. Everything is anonymous. You guys, there's nothing better than seeing just ding, 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 all these questions come through and having you guys trust me to answer your deepest desires, really deepest desires, questions, and confessions. So we're going to dive straight into everything today. We've got lots of questions to answer, so I really want to get through them. Plus, we did get a voicemail that I'm really excited to play. So let's dive right in. So we're going into this question first. I'm going to read it. I'm a late 30s woman who really struggles with desire. And to be honest, I rarely feel horny on my own, and I don't feel in touch with my body anymore. I feel disconnected. I love the intent of your workshops, but the thought of looking at myself up close and personal in a mirror makes me way too nervous. How can I ease into the practice of being that vulnerable? Okay. Thank you for your question, and thank you for your, desire and maybe your curiosity about coming to one of my workshops. So what this woman is referring to, if you guys listening don't know, is I host workshops called Awaken, a Vulva Revolution. They're just for people with vulvas, and we get together and explore our bodies a little bit. We do some breast massage, we do some vulva gazing, some vulva mapping. There is nudity. It's the only thing that I offer in a group setting like that with nudity, but it's very... I work really hard to curate a really comfortable atmosphere for these workshops. Lovely dim lighting. They're usually in the evenings. We have some candles. Like I said, only vulva owners in there. You got a room full of pussies coming in, and people tell me that they enter as strangers feeling a little apprehensive of what's about to happen. And by the end, everyone is dancing and hugging and, exchanging numbers and organizing coffees and things like that, because we realize that we are all not so different after all. And everybody who was in that room came in vulnerable, and then everybody who left felt a little bit more fulfilled. So to help this person answer your question specifically, I rarely feel horny on my own. I don't feel in touch with my body anymore. I feel disconnected and love the intent of the workshop. So what you could do at home if you were feeling disconnected from your own body, if you were really kind of interested in looking into Awaken, but you didn't really know where to start, doing some practices at home keeps this private, and it keeps the intent of it very personal, right? We talked last episode about vulva hugging. And if you missed, I'm going to explain it again, but let me grab my vulva first. So a vulva hug is a really simple practice in theory, but in reality, so many people with a vulva have never touched or looked at their vulvas in any other way except to maybe, blast out an orgasm, flick the bean, just take a vibrator and jam it on your clit kind of thing, or have something inside of you, right? But we've never really given ourselves permission to sit and actually touch this part of our body that is really energetically powerful. And we can change a lot in our everyday activities when we're in touch with our vulvas. So a vulva hug is just what it sounds like. You take your hand, palm on the mons pubis up by the clitoris, just kind of wrap your hand down around the labia of the vulva and give your vulva a little squeeze. This is just going to help you actually get literally in touch, just to touch your vulva for the first time, maybe for some people. And maybe for some people, it's not the first time you've touched it, but it's the first time that you've allowed touch without any sexual connotation behind it. Okay, so we're not touching in order to find the clitoris and in order to find orgasm. We're really just touching in order to say, oh, hey, I recognize that you're there. I recognize how important you are. And I'm going to give you a little hug and allow that love from your own body to your own body. The second thing that you can do within that practice at home, so you give yourself a little hug, is then just to start stroking very gently the labia majora and the labia minora. So that would be the outside lips and the inside lips, the fatty portion of the lips and then the thinner tissue, right, on the inside. But just giving it little strokes. Maybe play with what your pubic hair feels like. Maybe you don't have pubic hair and you can feel how gentle and soft that skin feels. But again, nothing in the realm of stimulating your clitoris or your vaginal opening. You're really just kind of getting to know what your body feels like. Excuse me, what your skin feels like. Your pubic hair. Oh, the pubic hair. So nobody gives enough credit to what it feels like to have your pubic hair stroked. We live in a society, and over the past many decades, I suppose, but for a minute there, the bush came back. And I think it's still back. I'm not entirely sure. I'm not up on my pubic hair trends. But you guys, anybody out there, how great does it feel to get your head rubbed? How great does it feel to have those hair follicles massaged and moved around on top of your head? I don't think there are very many people who would say, I don't like having my head rubbed at all. The same thing happens when you actually scratch and rub through the pubic hair. Those hair follicles have a lot of nerve endings in them. So if you have pubic hair and you've never before, give it a little scratch, give it a little rub. Kind of, look at me. If you can see me now, my hand is like a good 3 inches above the vulva here. I'm thinking like, what kind of bush am I talking about? Like, it's big and fluffy. But give yourself that time to kind of play with the pubic hair on your own vulva so that you can feel what you feel like. At home, if you wanted to, you could grab a mirror and just start looking. You don't have to do anything. You don't have to, put any heavy intent behind it. But I do want to encourage every person out there, every person, genitals aside, but specifically in this question, anybody with a vulva, to take a look at your vulva whenever you can. Every couple of weeks, once a month, every day before or after your shower, whatever that is, with a little hand mirror. It doesn't have to be part of a big ritual or masturbation or anything like that. But think about this for a second. If you went to the doctor and you said to the doctor, hey, I have this growth on my wrist and it got bigger since 2 weeks ago because I've been looking at it and I can tell you that it's gotten bigger, right? Then the doctor or, whatever medical professional or whatever you plan on doing for yourself has a timeline of progress, of something that might need help. Now imagine for a minute that you go to your gyno and you're getting, your yearly, hopefully everybody's getting their, every 3 years getting their PAP, and every year if you've had any kind of specialized treatment done. And your gyno or your doctor says to you, hey, when did this mole show up here? And you go, what mole? I don't know how to mole. Or, why the skin is a little discolored over on this side. Did you know that you have like a little scaly patch or a little something going on? And all you can do is look at your medical professional and go, I don't know. I don't look at it. I've never seen that before. I have no idea how long that's been there. So I want you to take looking at your vulva, take it out of the context of pleasure and masturbation for a minute, if that's the part that makes you feel really uncomfortable, because sometimes looking at it through a medicalized way, I don't love using that word, but it's kind of like a gateway to get to that pleasure and to kind of get to that comfort level. So if you have to reframe it outside of pleasure, outside of masturbation, in order for you to actually have a look, frame it in a medical way so that you can say to yourself, and I'm healthy. I know what I look like. I know that if anything else happens, I'm going to know the timeline and what that feels like. The same with your breasts, everyone. Like if you have breasts, any sort of breasts, to be honest with you, has breast tissue. So any human on this planet should be giving themselves a little breast massage or a breast rub and just feeling for lumps, bumps, imperfections. We all have imperfections, but things that weren't there before, right? Maybe a little bit of pain, maybe a little bit of, an uncomfortable sensation, whatever that is, just to give yourself a baseline of what that feels like so that if anything changes, you have that baseline for yourself. So people think that the work that I do in Awaken has a lot to do with just, pleasure, masturbation, all. I mean, it does. It has a lot to do with that. I do want you to get in touch with your sexual self. I do want you to get in touch with your sexual body. However, I also want every person with a vulva on this planet to take their health and their bodies into consideration and allow yourselves that space and permission to take care of you and have the agency to be able to stand up for yourself and say, no, I need you to take a look at this right now because 2 weeks ago when I looked at my vulva while I was masturbating, this wasn't there and now it is, and we need to take care of that. Okay? So with that said, how can I ease into the practice of being that vulnerable? Have a look at home. Do a couple of those little practices at home. In a group setting, it's a little bit different, but I assure you, and I say that with a lot of confidence because I've hosted hundreds of women at Awaken, and I have never had a woman come to me and say that they felt so utterly uncomfortable. Okay, I've only gotten pretty decent reviews on that. I actually had one woman come into Awaken a couple of years ago, and she had no idea what to expect. She thought she was coming into like a yoga class, and all of a sudden our tits are out and there's like mirrors and lubes. And at the end of it, she's like, oh my God, I panicked. I didn't know what I was getting myself into. Mind you, it's written everywhere, even in the emails, online, everywhere that there's nudity and this is what we're doing. But even she was like, this was amazing. Even though I didn't know what I was about to get myself into, the evening was curated. The people who show up for the right reasons, and they show up in order to kind of connect with other people. So it's a beautiful space to be in. Okay, so we have a voicemail. So let's listen to this voicemail and get into it.
Hello, Serena. My husband and I have been together for a while. We've always had a wonderful sex life, but recently we started to explore fantasies and had enough trust with each other to act them out under the influence of something like marijuana, but still. One of my fantasies had always been seeing my husband with another man, and that was always something that kind of repulsed him, but now it's something that he's intrigued by, and if anything, maybe even more excited about than I am. And I don't know how I feel about that. I'm curious how many straight men do have that fantasy, but I'm also curious if it was something that we did decide to act on, if it might be something that ends up damaging our relationship and our trust. And how we navigate that, because I do feel as though the way that we're exploring things, the inevitable end of that is that happens. So how do we navigate that, and what do you recommend?
I love this question. Oh, it's so good. It is so good. Okay, first of all, if you listened last week or last episode, you will hear another gentleman come in and ask a question about how, what it means with him as a straight man, fantasizing, visualizing, and wanting to see penises in the porn that he's watching, okay? And now this question coming in. So let me just touch immediately on, can we just recognize that this is something that more men, straight men, want to experience or think there's, a benefit in experiencing for them with their pleasure than we've kind of really talk about out loud, all right? And the elephant in the room is that the, quote, homophobic idea of a straight man wanting to be with another man and what that means to your sexuality, okay? Now, it doesn't mean that there's anything going on with your sexuality. You can be, I can't say this any simpler. You can be a straight man who wants to be in relationship with a woman who wants to have sex primarily with women who also wants to experience the fun and playful side of being with somebody of the same gender or the same sex. It really is that simple. It can be that simple. Now, to get to this person's kind of question and their confession as well, I really appreciate you trusting us with, it's a quite delicate thing to navigate. You've been experiencing your fantasies now together and building trust around your fantasies. I'm really proud of you for that. Being able to take things slow, however that looked for you. You didn't really kind of give us exactly, right, how things are going with your fantasies, but you've gotten to a point where he feels comfortable telling you about this. And it's something that you always wanted. And I wonder if you want to sit back for a minute and think to yourself, what about that fantasy did I really like? And what is it that's feeling threatening to me right now? I don't have a lot to go on, so I'm going to make a couple of assumptions, okay? So bear with me. The assumption that I make that as a straight woman, your fantasy of wanting to have two men was because you would be getting all of the attention. That's generally why straight men fantasize about two women, right? Because the fantasy is sometimes about the two women being together, but primarily it's about them being like king of the castle and having these women do things to their bodies and sensations and visuals and all this kind of stuff that they really love. So for you as a straight woman, you probably were thinking about the same thing. I'm not entirely sure if your thoughts and your fantasies went to watching your husband with another man or if it was participating with another man. So those two things can be a little bit different, but they can still exist in the same fantasy. Now that your husband feels like he wants to participate, more than likely the conversation might go something like, yeah, I would like that too. I wouldn't mind either, kissing another man or doing oral or having anal sex or doing whatever those actual sex acts would be. So now maybe that fantasy that was yours, that you were, sharing, that you were queen of the castle in that moment, is now being shared with another person. And maybe there could be part of you that's thinking, well, where do I even exist in that part of the fantasy? This was supposed to be my fantasy, but now that you are taking it on and wanting it, isn't that what I always wanted, right? Isn't that what I wanted, is for him to be on board with this? But now that he is on board with it, I'm feeling my control being pulled away, right? I'm being untethered from my own fantasy world. In that, I want everybody to understand that this is where bringing fantasy into reality gets blurred in those lines. We don't always have to bring our fantasies into reality, because the reality is, regardless of man, woman, doesn't matter who we're bringing into our relationships, there's now a third party. Now that third party is not a faceless dildo or a silicone, vulva or a vibrator or anything like that. It's a human being with thoughts and feelings and desires, all of their own, attraction levels, ways that they can communicate and participate with our partners. And now we have to think to ourselves, what could I lose from doing this? What do I feel out of control with if there's another third party in here? And now that your husband, is on board with having this other partner in there, maybe you're feeling a little untethered from that control that you had on your fantasy in the beginning. So the second little part of that was, what should we be aware of and how can we navigate this a little bit? I don't know how far you guys have gone already. I don't, in your fantasy worlds, right? Experiencing those and practicing those and how you've brought things in. You did say that you were experiencing most of this under the influence of marijuana, right? Having some cannabis on board and allowing that relaxation and maybe that inhibition to let go a little bit. I always recommend, and I know there's going to be people out there that are like, it shouldn't matter, it doesn't matter, you don't know what you're talking about, but I do always recommend, if you're going to bring a third person in or do something that actually involves something in real life, please do it with all of your senses on board. I know people are going to come at me and be like, cannabis is not the same, you can make decisions, and yes, you can. However, I would be really mindful to even say that if you were going to go to a sex club or have a threesome or do whatever, that you, for the first time, that you wouldn't have alcohol on board and you wouldn't have weed on board, and you wouldn't, just so that you can really understand how your body and your emotions are going to react to that. And then the follow-up afterwards, how in the moment, if something goes wrong, if something triggers somebody, how are you going to be able to be completely emotionally present if, we have substances? Regardless. So just keep that in mind. Everybody navigates that differently. And I'm not here to say right or wrong. Just keep that in mind, that you really want to make sure that you have your mind with you and you have all of your senses with you so that you can navigate what could be happening with your highest emotional intelligence that you possibly can. The other thing I wanted to kind of touch on with this is that if it's about bringing in another man with your husband, maybe, or with your partner, I wasn't sure. I think you did say husband. Why don't you? I don't know if you've done this yet, but like watch some porn together. Pull up some same-sex porn. Pull up some orgies. Pull up some stuff like that, and see how you react and how he reacts, and then how you react to his turn on, and how he reacts to maybe your turn on. Those kind of things. So that would be like baby step one after the conversation. The other suggestion that I have is, if you're in an area that has any sort of, sex club that you could go to and participate in voyeurism, like watching and being in the environment without actually participating yet, allowing yourselves moments of flirtation and moments of, arousal by looking and seeing things, or having people look and see you, whatever that feels like. Whenever, it doesn't matter who we're talking about when it comes to bringing in a third, but I always suggest doing a couple of little things first. Watching the porn together, see how you react when you see your partner turned on by something that maybe doesn't feel the same for you. Then immerse yourself into an environment that is relatively less threatening than having that person right there in the moment, dicks out, ready to go. And oh crap, I don't feel good about this. Now what? Right? In moments like that, sometimes we make really harsh decisions and we say, well, I just need to go along with it now because I did. And then there's so much regret and tears afterwards. Or you shut it down right away, but because you shut it down and you've been emotionally kind of flooded in that moment, maybe you shut it down in the wrong way, and you and your partner then have to repair after that. Plus now you have to repair another person's emotions and feelings as well. The third thing that I always suggest is hiring a professional. This is just a general overall blanket statement for anybody who wants to bring anybody else into your relationship. You don't know how you're going to react. Hire a professional to come in. They know their role. They know their job. They know how to come in and come out. And pardon the pun, Sarah just looks at me like coming in and coming out. But they know their role and they know what to expect, right? So now they've also probably been in these situations before. Before you do it, you can ask them, this is what I want. This is what we're dealing with. Do you have any suggestions? Do you have any experience in helping couples kind of navigate through what this looks like? And then you don't have to worry about, in the moment, if you see your partner and this other person doing something that maybe you don't love, you've already established in the beginning, maybe we have safe words, right? Either safe words or stop words in those moments where we're experimenting with something. And that's why we bring in this professional to have that experiment and see how we're feeling with it. Now, the last part of your confession, your question was the possible negative impacts that this could have on your relationship. And I'm reading between the lines. I'm not going to lie. So forgive me if I've made an assumption that's completely out there. But what I'm hearing is maybe you're worried that your partner would prefer to be with men rather than you. Now, here's the thing. Unless your partner comes to you and says, hey, babe, after all of these years of being married and I've experimented here, I'm definitely homosexual and I definitely only like men. And now I don't think that we can be together anymore. Okay. So as hard as that sounds, if that's going to happen, it's going to happen at some point, right? It would happen, or there would be just this big secret involved. The other thing is that your partner could come to you and go, oh shit, guess what? I think I'm bi. That's cool. That's cool. I like to be with both, men and women, penises and vaginas. I really love this. Like, I can maybe go and we can do this together more often. Maybe you're worried that they're going to want to go and do it with a man without you, right? So now we're navigating more of an open style relationship rather than just bringing in that third. And I just want to validate, because there's so much to unpack here, but I do just want to validate the fact that your apprehension around that is okay. It is valid. You do have a lot of questions. Unfortunately, I can't answer them all on this podcast right now because it is so vast. But if you want to reach out, serenahaines.com, we can set up some time and have a conversation about that, because I think this is a bit deeper than just, he wants to suck a dick and I don't want to watch him. It's so much more than that right now. I'm really proud of you guys for having these conversations. I'm really proud of you for diving into your fantasies the way that you are. I think that you need to take really small steps in order to get there, and understand that just because your partner, regardless of who you are, just because your partner may want to and be sexually attracted to the same sex or different sex, whatever it is, somebody other than you, doesn't mean that they don't also want you. We can have both. We can do all, but that just requires a lot of conversation. I hope that helped. That was a really big one. I really hope that you got a couple of answers, and thank you for trusting us with that. Okay, so our next question comes from a woman. She says, "Hi there, love your page. I'm female, have a high sex drive, but been single for years. I'm really missing a man's touch, but not wanting to pursue a relationship. How can I feel that while masturbating?" So first of all, I want to applaud you for saying, how can I feel that while masturbating, instead of how can I feel that with any man? Absolutely, my girl, you got it. Listen, having that relationship with your own body is so important. In a lot of these questions, when it comes to, missing a man's touch, but I don't want to pursue a relationship, right after that, we kind of assume the next thing is going to be, how can I participate in casual sex and still feel great? Which you can, by the way. Casual sex is not callous sex. It's not supposed to be. It's supposed to be as fulfilling and lovely as any sex that you have. You can be intimately connected with your grosser if you want to be. Come talk to me. I'll teach you how. But how can I feel that while masturbating? So I get that. When we have skin-on-skin contact with another person, our hormones are releasing, our oxytocin is releasing, there's some adrenaline there, there's all kinds of bonding chemicals happening, and we're really not going to get that with a vibrator, right? We're not going to get that with a dildo. We're not going to get that skin-on-skin contact. So you need to give that to yourself. And this is a really amazing way to create some rituals for yourself around your masturbation that have nothing to do with just your clit, right? So the first thing that I want to just teach everybody and tell everybody is that your masturbation doesn't have to be just so genitally focused. It doesn't have to just be hand on clit, dildo and vag. It doesn't have to be that at all. In order to have a really expansive personal pleasure practice, we need to start utilizing our breath. We need to utilize movement, and we need to utilize touch. We can also utilize our, sense of smell and taste. If you bring in all of your 5 senses in your own masturbation practice, then you can help replicate the feelings and the sensations and the comfort that would come with having another person there. When we have another person, whether we're trying to or not, we're smelling them. Whether we're trying to or not, we're tasting them. We're certainly touching them, and we're getting that touch returned to us. So we need to find ways in order to do that for ourselves. Oils are going to be your best friend. A lovely arm massage, breast massage. I want you to focus a lot on your chest and your breasts before you go anywhere near your genitals. Allow your heart space to open up a little bit. Allow that energy of your heart energy to kind of radiate out through your body. Warm up your chest tactilely. Just touch your chest. Rub your breasts, not just your nipples, but just rub on your breasts. Allow your collarbone some delicate touch, like décolletage, down your arms, allowing your hands to caress your own hands, your hands on your face. You can do this while I'm even talking right now. As I talk about it, I have no choice but move my body in a different way, but carry myself in a more gentle, delicate way. When we talk about gentle touch, we never talk about touching ourselves. It's always about touching somebody else. So I want you to practice this gentle touch on yourself. Even if we touch ourselves that way, our brain doesn't necessarily know that it's not somebody else. I mean, it does, but it can still replicate that sensation, those feelings of comfort and care for ourselves. And then when you get down to your genitals, when you do get down to your pussy and you're trying to, feel the pleasure sensations. Like I said earlier in the episode, instead of just going straight for your clitoris, start to rub your labia, start to rub your inner thighs, your lower belly. So we have like all of these energy centers in our bodies, which are so cool. And when you learn how to activate them, you can use your breath and you can use your brain to kind of bring this energy up through your body. The way that we can start that is by taking a really deep breath into your pelvic floor and expanding your pelvic floor and expanding your lower belly. Now, for most women, this is an act of rebellion, expanding your lower belly, because we are taught from the time we are the tiniest little beings to stand up straight and suck it in, small waists, little bellies, and everything needs to be tight. So for you to let your pelvis go and just let your belly rise with your breath and expand and your pelvic floor to release, your pussy is right there and she's thanking you and saying, thank you for not holding me in right now. So get in touch with what it feels like to breathe in, expand your pelvic floor, release your belly, exhale, contract your pelvic floor, kind of squeeze your womb space, if you will, your lower belly area, your sacral center, just below your belly button. This can be done with anybody with any genitals, for the record, but we're going to talk about vulvas today. So then you're going to kind of squeeze that, and then on the inhale again, expand, and on the exhale, squeeze, just a little squeeze. We're not lifting surfboards with our pussies today. We're just expanding a little bit and contracting a little bit, just a little bit of energy. Ready? Breathing in. Expand your belly, exhale, squeeze your energetic center, breathe in, expand, exhale, squeeze your energetic center. And what we're doing is we're bringing attention to our vulva. We're bringing the breath to our vulva, and we're bringing all of that blood flow to our vulva. Again, that's going to replicate the time it takes for a partner to be with us in those moments, right? What we miss a lot when we're masturbating is the fact that there's an extended period of time where our lips are kissed and our hair is brushed and our shoulders are touched and there's hands on our bellies and our breasts. And we don't do that for ourselves a lot during our masturbation practice. So try to expand on the foreplay, quote, the foreplay activities, the outer course activities, using your breath to relax your body, using your touch to gently caress and stroke yourself. Hopefully that helps you feel a little more connected in your body and a little more fulfilled, a little more expansive, if you will, rather than just going and more than likely, like most of us, when we're masturbating, just having a quick clitoral orgasm. And then, I call them like your sneeze orgasms. Not that there's anything wrong with that. A sneeze feels great, but they're quick and they're localized and it's, clit focused and that's it. If you expand that pleasure through your body beforehand, and then you have your orgasm, your cells, all of your cells are already going to have a boner, right? Like all of your skin cells are going to have boners. All of your, your nipples are going to have a boner. Your clit's already going to have a boner. You're going to give yourself time to actually get engorged in all of your erectile centers and have a boner before you do it for yourself, right? And then you can walk around saying that I got horny for me and for nobody else. So hopefully that helps. All right, this next question comes in from a man who is married to a woman. He says, been married 22 years to an amazing woman. She's always been the higher desire partner by far. She's in perimenopause and her libido has dropped, and we are both having trouble adjusting. She isn't used to not wanting it and doesn't have, quote, rain check skills like I've developed. And I'm struggling being both the initiator and also receiving the rejections. Total role reversal. Yeah. So this question kind of hits me in the feels a little bit for lots of reasons. I'm in several midlife groups of women, of people, and the conversation of menopause and perimenopause is just flooded everywhere I go, which is fantastic. It's my age group, and it may or may not be your age group right now, but it will be at some point. So we're all going to want to listen. Perimenopause is a really tough place for women to be and for our partners. We've never gotten any education on what that feels like, what it's supposed to be. It's been pathologized to the tilt. Okay. It's, there's something wrong with me. There's something going on. I'm broken, all of these things. especially for women who have high desire, or even women who have who had just developed their desire. So you know that the old story goes, women in their mid-30s are the horniest that they're ever going to be. Like they're finally kind of getting there. Sarah, sorry, distracted me. She's like, fuck that. That's not true. Anyway, but that's the saying, right? Like these young guys are going for these cougars in their mid-30s because that's when they're having the highest sex and blah, blah, blah. It probably took a woman all of her 20s to get comfortable with her sexuality, finally gets there, and then perimenopause smacks us in the face and is like, pup, sorry, tricked ya, not a chance, right? And then your desire plummets again. So it plays real big mind games with you as well. And then, of course, for your partner. In this case, if you've been married for 22 years and your partner has always had the higher desire and you've never really had to be the initiator, and now all of that is flipped on its head, it's really, really tough. You've never had to worry about, not getting the sex that you want, and now you're also feeling rejected. For for your wife, if you're listening, for your wife in this, I would really encourage her to settle into the fact that perimenopause is just a stage. It's not forever. It's gonna change. It might change quickly. It might change not so quickly. You may have to get maybe some hormone therapy, maybe some vaginal estrogen, lots of things that we're not going to dive too deep into right now, but we can do another episode on those things and maybe have a little special guest on, because I've got a lot of really cool menopause specialists in my life that would explain this a lot better to you. But just knowing that it's a stage and it's not something that we really have to be too worried about it never going away, because it will. Because once you hit menopause, which is actually one day of menopause, and then after that, everything is post-menopause, everything can change again. Okay. And everything will be better. It's like going into pre-adolescence and then hitting puberty and coming out on the other side. We're kind of in our midlife puberty right now, where our hormones are just changing and everything is kind of a mess. So I don't want you or your partner to maybe feel too overwhelmed. It's so easy to say, and it's so much harder to do. I understand. But the idea that now that you're the initiator and you're receiving the rejections, I'd like to kind of mention to you this little method that I talk to a lot of people. And we talk a lot about this when we're talking about responsive and spontaneous desired partners. So somebody who has higher desire and somebody who has lower desire, somebody who needs just a little bit more help getting their brain and their body to connect with their desire and their arousal. And then the other partner, their brain and body, desire and arousal are completely connected. And we call this the 5-minute method, where you just go to your partner after a conversation already has happened, right? We've had this conversation. Serena, my sex wing woman told me about this 5-minute method that she's created where, if one of us is feeling like we really want to have the sex and our brains and our bodies are not connected right away, our desire and our arousal is not connected, we go to each other and we say, listen, can you just give me 5 minutes? And all that means is that if let's say I'm your wife and I'm not feeling sexy and I don't feel like I really want to do it right now and I have no desire, my body's completely turned off and I'm feeling really crappy about it, my shoulder hurts and I'm dizzy all the time and I got all these perimenopausal symptoms and I don't know what's going on with my life. And then you come to me and you want to have sex with me, I'm going to be like, not a chance. But if you come to me and you say, hey, can you just give me 5 minutes? And what you end up doing within those 5 minutes is a lot of non-sexual arousal for me. Hugs, kissing, neck kissing, stroking my hair, rubbing my bum maybe. Maybe we love our little backside squeeze. I love a little lower back rub. It's very erotic to me. So everybody has their own little thing. 5 minutes of like a makeout is all that is. Allow me a chance for my brain, which is saying no, I've got things to do. I don't feel like this. And my body that might be aching for some physical touch. It might be aching to want to be that person that I used to be. Give me 5 minutes to have that become cohesive again and allow them to connect. Because once our bodies really start to wake up, our brain goes, oh yeah, I do really like this. I actually can feel really settled with your touch. Now, the caveat to this is that if after 5 minutes, the partner just really has something else to do, or there really isn't that connection, then you've already talked about what that feels like. And instead of it feeling like rejection, what you can do is reframe that just as feedback. Thank you for trying, but right now is really not the time. I did really try. I love you so much. That felt really great, but you know what? The pasta's boiling over, or, I really got to get this project done for work. Maybe let's come back to this in a minute. But now you've had that 5 minutes. So sometimes all we need is, we think we just need like this long 2-hour long sex or even a quickie. But it always boils down to that sex, right? But what we're really craving is that intimacy, the intimate touch, the desire, feeling desired and feeling desire in our body and feeling that arousal in our body. And if you have that 5 minutes with your partner just for making out, you may find that their sensual idol starts to go up a little bit, just their inner hotness, their arousal level just constantly is at a bubbling point, is what I like to call it, or maybe just a simmering point. Maybe we're not bubbling all the time, but we're simmering all the time or most of the time. And then it'll be a little bit easier to go to your partner or have them come to you and be like, gosh, I remember going to my husband a couple of times and saying, I see you. I love you. My body is actually horny. My pussy is actually horny. But my brain is like, fuck that shit. I got shit to do. I don't want to get naked. I don't want to have to make the bed again. I don't want to. And in those moments, he would know to just take me, kiss me, and shut my brain off just for a little while and just allow that. And it was not very often that after those 5 minutes, we weren't fully engaged in what we wanted to do. But it took that minute for my brain to just shut off. And I needed somebody to be that person to do it for me. So you have never had to be that initiator and have to be that person to say, let me shut your brain off for you. Let me just take all of that off. Let me take that weight off your shoulders right now for a minute. 5 minutes. That's all you got to give me. And we don't have to participate any farther if you don't feel like it. All pressure is off the table, but you do that and then see what happens. All right. Next question. These are such great questions this week. I'm really proud of you guys. Make sure that you're really putting those questions in for us. At the end of the show notes, we've got the anonymous form. We've got anonymous voicemail form. We see nothing. Like, I see no names, nothing. And we really just love hearing all of your questions. I think that I might start doing on my Instagram like a Sunday take me to church dirty confession spot. I just want to hear all the nasty things you guys have done on the weekends. Okay, that's just for me though. Maybe I'll just keep it to myself. Okay, so next question. I, female, have a fantastic partner, male, who I love. However, our sex life and intimacy is a struggle. I've suggested new positions. I gave him in-person lessons about my downstairs. It was a joint effort, and I rarely get off. He only comes in missionary, and when I want to get on top, he gets soft. And I know it's not about me, but how do I approach to make sure he feels safe, but bring up what I need as well? Okay. Lots of stuff in this question. This is a really, really great explanation of how you're feeling, how you've already tried to give him an in-person lesson down there, and what you need. So I'm really glad that you're able to know what you need, first of all. So kudos to you for that. There are so many of us that would just have shitty sex for the rest of our lives because we're afraid to bring up what it is that we need. So the fact that you can even say that to him is fantastic. Now, on that note, a lot of men specifically have been socialized to believe that they are supposed to know exactly how to please a woman, exactly how to have all the good sex, how to be the best lover, how to be a big porn star in bed, how to do. And when that is questioned at all, if there's any feedback, it feels like rejection. If there's, anything like, well, I need this and they can't execute it, they kind of shut down. It's a mental game for them. So guys, if you're listening out there and you have a person come to you and say, this is something that I really would like to try, or this is something that I need, it's going to take work, but you really need to try not to take that personally and understand that society has taught you that that is a negative thing, when in reality, it's not. In reality, it's the most positive thing ever that you have a partner who can come to you and say, let's have the most crazy, amazing sex life that we possibly can by sharing exactly what we need and then trying to find ways around that. Okay. Now, let's get into this specifically. I gave him in-person lessons about my downstairs, and I rarely get off. So I'm not entirely sure if that meant you gave him oral, lessons, or if you gave him manual lessons, but you also said, and I rarely get off. So I just want to point out, I'm going to read between the lines. I'm going to make an assumption. I do that a lot. Don't get mad at me. But these questions come into me a lot. If you're not getting off, I just want you to self-evaluate how you masturbate first. Okay. That's not to say that there isn't anything that your partner can't do to make this better. But please, everybody out there with a vulva, I want you to just kind of self-reflect on how you masturbate. If you masturbate with I'm holding up a massive wand right now from WeVibe, which is fantastic, by the way. It rumbles like an earthquake. It's amazing. But if you only use something like this, then your partner can't replicate that at all, ever. Not with their tongue, not with their hands, only with the vibrator. So if you're a person, there's nothing wrong with using vibrators. I absolutely love them. Love, love, love. Okay? Don't come at me. Love, love, love. But if it's the only way that you can even get yourself off, then we need to maybe realize that our partners might be trying their best, but your pleasure pathways, the way the patterns that you've created for yourself are only going to work in this one way. You've created a habit for yourself. Same goes with people who have penises who, jerk off with a really tight grip really fast, or a really loose grip with a lot of lube and no friction. Whatever your pattern, your habit is, you need to make sure you're able to replicate that with your partner, or be able to do so many different things that it doesn't have to be replicated by your partner and you can still get off with them. So just keep in mind that even if you were giving them lessons, they still don't know what your body feels like, and they still don't know exactly how that feels, right? So you may have to help out a little bit. He only comes in missionary. And when I want to get on top, he gets soft. So again, whatever the reason is for him only coming in missionary is his reason, and you're going to have to ask him. There's lots of people that I know who have penises who say they can't come in missionary because it's so much work, right? And their heart rate is up and they're moving all the time. And it's like they're running a race and also trying to come at the same time, and they find it really hard. For whatever reason, your partner really likes that. Is it the visual? Is it the fact that, you're lying down? Is it the fact that he gets to see your face? Is it the fact that he feels more dominant in that position and more of a man, quote, masculine, in a position of being on top of you? There are lots of reasons, again, why men would feel that way. Just societally, they have been, shamed for, any sort of, quote, feminine attribute or submissive attribute. So therefore, the biggest porn stars in the world are the ones, doing the fucking. So that might be something in his brain where maybe if he watches porn, or maybe that's how he thinks that he has to kind of be in that sexual situation with you, that we can reframe that in a different way. So he may be getting soft for different reasons, not necessarily because of the sex, but because of something that's going on in his mind. Maybe lots of men are told that if you're on the bottom, you're lazy. If you're making her do all the work, then you're lazy. If she has to get on top and do all that, it means you couldn't please her. So there's a whole string of things that men, heterosexual men, in this instance specifically, feel and have been socialized to believe, and lots of narratives that are really destructive to curiosity and expansion in the bedroom. I know it's not about me, but how do I approach to make sure he feels safe, but bringing up what I need? So my suggestion really is to just say to your partner, hey, can I get off first? Can I do this first? So can we do something else that's going to get me there? Whether it's, a vibrator, bringing in a vibrator if they don't feel threatened by that, which they shouldn't, right? We don't feel threatened by our wingman. We really just kind of want to, anyway, I was going to go off on a cockpit. What's that fucking movie? All the dudes out there are going to be like, Jesus, Serena, what's the movie with Tom Cruise, with the movie, with the goose, with the Top Gun, Jesus. Christ, I just had a stroke. I was like, oh my Lord. Anyway, your wingman, the Iceman, he was the wingman, whatever, he was there. You get what I'm trying to say. Foolish. Anyways, that's the last time I try to be friggin' funny. Anyways, just know that you can get off first, right? Like you can find your orgasm however you need to find it. If he's on the bottom and you want to ride him on top, you can say things like, babe, the reason that I want to get on top is because I want you to be able to see me bouncing up and down, grinding on you. Try to help position, again, I'm making assumptions, but try to help position him in his mind that he's still in control and in charge of what's happening, that he's not a failure in bed because you need to take the reins of your own pleasure, that the fact that he's allowing you to take the reins of your own pleasure means that he really does have his head wrapped around being a good lover. Like one of the best lovers is being able to say to your partner, what do you need? Take it from me. Take your pleasure from me. Use my body. Use me for what you need because I get off on seeing you get off, right? So just allow your partner that space to feel like he's still the one. Giving is telling him that if he can't do it, if he can't be the one that's actually doing the movements, the motions, the whatever, that something in him might feel lazy, something in him might not feel like the best lover that he can be. But any partner who allows you space to get your pleasure or take your pleasure from them is a great lover. Okay, so I hope that helped. The next question is really close to this, which is going to kind of tie in hand with this. And I hope that this helps you as well. But it says, can you talk about the best positions for orgasm for women? My man only wants doggy because he says it's the best for him and can't get off any other way. But now I can't get off. Okay, so listen, guys. Listen, this is two women in a row that are sitting here going, this is what he needs, but I can't get off. What the fuck? So can you please just listen to how we are trying our best to say, I want to come too. I am a dirty, filthy slut and I really want to get my nut as well, right? Can we do this together? Can this be a team effort, right? But just because you can't get off in a certain position doesn't mean then you write off everything else and just be like, well, I'm not going to get off with you on top, so we're not going to do that. Absolutely not. Ladies, no, okay, I'm not going to break up relationships today, but if your partner looks at you and says, there's no other way, I only can do doggy, then you need to say, babe, we need to expand your curiosity on this because there's so much more to understand. So I'm going to go backwards on this, right? So my man only wants doggy because he says it's best for him. He can't get off any other way. Awesome. Do it last. Do it last. And you've got so many other things that you can do in the meantime. Okay. So that's the first thing. If you're a dude or a gal and you have a position and you just can't get there any other way, well, guess what? That's the closer. That's your closer. That's at the end. Check that off as, you know what? This is going to be amazing, but we're going to get you off first, whoever that other partner is that's going to need a little bit of something. Okay. Because honestly, sometimes this is with women. I'm going to TMI, put a microphone in front of me. I'm going to tell you all my secrets, but like, I only get off on top only, but if you put me on top right away, I'm coming and then you might want to just go make me a sandwich because I'm not sure I want to participate after that. It's going to take me a minute. No, I'm only kidding. I do. But like, for the men out there, when you come, you really just want to come and go, right? We get that because a lot of us gals, if we're on top, like if I'm on top and I come, but you haven't yet, then I got to have my orgasm, which is usually mind blowing. But then I got to keep going. It's like running a marathon, crossing the finish line, being like, oh yeah, but then you got to keep going. You just got to keep running. Like you're tired. You're satisfied. You really kind of want to stop, but we do it out of the goodness of our hearts for you. So, but you guys can't do it out of the goodness of your hearts most of the time, right? Because you come and then a lot of the time once you've ejaculated, right, you'll lose your heart on and then we can't anymore. So we need to keep that in mind that, a lot of us who have vaginas and vulvas, like we can keep going at some point, but you might not be able to. So if that's the case, you want to hold off your closer until literally the end and then allow that. So the best position for a woman to orgasm, there's a couple. We're going to go back. So like number 3 on my list is reverse cowgirl. Okay. That's on my list. It's on a lot of lists, but that's number 3. And the reason for that is because of the angle that you're working with, plus the grinding that you can get, plus if you want to stimulate your own body, you can with either a vibrator or your hands while you're facing their feet. So a reverse cowgirl is they're lying down, you're straddling on top, on your knees, not on your feet. Not on your feet. We don't need to be on our feet. We go to the gym and we do our quads. Our quads look great in our heels, but we do not need to be on our toes and our feet when we're bouncing. Okay, bouncing up and down on a dick is not going to be the most conducive way to have an orgasm. Some of us love it, right? And if you want to do it, do it. But if you're doing it and you're finding, I absolutely hate my life right now. I'm sweating. I can't breathe. My quads burn, but I don't feel like I can give up. Just give up. Just don't. Get on your knees. Okay. So straddle your partner on your knees. If for some reason your body is not capable of straddling your partner, if your legs are short and they're a bigger person, put some pillows under your knees. Make that happen for you where you can kind of hopefully straddle that partner as best you can, so that if we have a visual here, so that your vulva and all of the juiciness of your clitoris, which we've talked about before, which is underneath your labia. Your clitoris is a wishbone-sized organ with lots of erectile tissue, and it lives behind all of your labia. So when you're grinding on a partner, that entire clitoral complex is being stimulated rather than just the little bean that we see on the outside. There's a huge organ on the inside. It grows to about 3 to 4 inches of erectile tissue once it's fully engorged. It's just like it's not like a little dick. Dicks are like big clitorises. We all had clitorises in utero. And then once those chromosomes did their magic, it fused together to become a penis. So it's the same tissues in there and the same nerves that are going to help us have our orgasms. So that reverse cowgirl is so that you can get on your partner facing away. You're looking at their feet. You can stimulate your nipples. You can stimulate your clitoris. You can grind on them. Okay, whatever way that you want. You can do a little twerk up and down. You can do a little roundabout, whatever it is that you want. Number 3. Number 2 would be missionary or lying on your back with your legs in the air or a pillow under your hips. Again, angles are everything. If you are having intercourse, let's say we're in missionary and you're having intercourse and there's somebody having sex, like fucking you straight in the vagina, penis and vagina, straight in, or dildo, all you're really stimulating is the vaginal opening and the vagina itself. Maybe some of the cervix, and you'll hit up around the interior wall of where the G area is, where you'd have those G-spot orgasms, but it's not directed pressure. It's really just this in and out, right? So we kind of don't even have a minute to feel. I liken in and out P&V sex to that zzz, 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 zzz on the vibrator. Nobody likes that one, right? Because it's not enough. It's not enough direct contact. And it's the same thing with this in and out. The in and out works great for a penis. That's how it has to be stimulated. But a vulva actually needs grinding, and it needs to be kind of filled and held in order for that clitoris to have enough stimulation a lot of the time. So, but if you put a pillow underneath your partner's hips, and those hips then are elevated, when you're getting penetrated or insertion, the angle at which the penis is going in, or the dildo, the angle is then hitting a little bit higher up around that G area, hitting the back of the clitoral complex, allowing much more contact with the sex organ, which is not the vagina. It is the clitoris. The clitoris is the female sex organ, okay? Not the vagina. Number 1 is not doggy style. Fuck doggy style. Number 1 is cowgirl. Just cowgirl, cow person on top facing your partner, okay? Again, same with the reverse, but because you're facing your partner, you want your partner to be, I'm going to try to use my hands for this one. Instead of your partner just being completely horizontal, you're going to want your partner to be on a bit of an angle, like if you were on a sofa, kind of slouched down, or you had a few pillows behind your back if you were the person lying down. And then the person with the vulva will straddle your partner face on and then lean forward so that your vulva and so your clitoris is actually grinding up against your partner's pubic mound and lower abdomen. So you're getting that direct clitoral stimulation on the outside. Because of the angle, you're getting direct stimulation of the clitoris on the backside, on the inside, plus G-spot stimulation, plus maybe, depending on the angle and depending on the anatomy of the partners that you're with, you may be able to get some A-spot or P-spot or C-spot stimulation, right? So what is that? The A-spot and the P-spot are anterior and posterior, so above and below the cervix. So above and below the cervix, there's these two really beautiful spots full of nerve endings that can cause full body orgasms. And your cervix is also a space of pleasure, but a lot of people with cervixes will say that if their cervix is hit, it hurts quite a bit. It's only because you're not used to touching it most of the time. Some of us are going to have trouble all the time. But if you massage that, you can soften that up and allow pleasure as well. So number one would be person on top. If you have breasts and you're on top of your partner and you have a clitoris and you're leaned forward and you can kiss your partner and then your partner can suck on your titties and then you can be riding and grinding, that to me it's all encompassing. Your nipples and your clitoris follow the pudendal nerve. The pudendal nerve is responsible for your orgasm. It goes all the way to your brain, stimulates your orgasm, and comes all the way back down to your body. If you're having both nipples and your clitoris and maybe some parts of your vagus nerve, because you might be hitting some depending on the angle that you're in person on top, all of that stimulated all at once, that's like a perfect recipe for full body combo orgasms. So that would be my number one recommendation for people who have vulvas is get on top, find yourself an angle that you can grind. And again, it's not up and down. It's more of a front and back movement. But I'm gonna go off on a bit here. That front and back, I've been with partners. I don't know about you, Sarah. I've been with partners and I'll get on top and I know how to get my nut. And I'll get on top and all of a sudden they've grabbed my hips and they're literally pushing me back and forth. Now, God love them. They've heard somewhere back and forth grinding is better than up and down. I can appreciate that. But what's ended up happening is that you're horizontally pushing me back and forth. So like toward the knees, toward the belly, toward the knees, toward the belly. That can work for some people depending on your anatomy. But for some of us, we actually need like undulation, right? So like you kind of need your hips to move like a snake rather than just move back and forth, back and forth. So if a person gets on top of you and you think that they're getting into it, please just let them get their nut. You can touch them later. Just don't touch me. Just let me do my thing. That's my recommendation. Well, that's it for this week, everyone. Thank you for listening to Intimacy Unlocked. We're so excited to be here. Make sure you get those questions in. Anonymous form in the show notes, anonymous voicemails in the show notes. We see nothing except your questions, and we really appreciate everything. While you're there, leave us a 5-star review. We really want to know how you guys are feeling about everything. We're so excited to get these episodes out to you, so let us know how you feel about it. Thank you for your questions. Keep them coming. We can't wait to see you next time. Stay curious. Thank you for listening to the Intimacy Unlocked podcast, where I'm unlocking your pleasure one question at a time. The key is already in your hands. Are you ready to turn it?